Hello and welcome to our show. My name is Janara Iman. I'm a clinical nutritionist, and the name of our show is Chronic Ailments and Scientific Nutrition. This show will bring you topics on health and healing that come from natural medicines and blood and lab testing. We look for science-based medical testing for the treatment of chronic ailments with natural solutions for encouraging the body to heal itself. So, we use labs, nutrition, and supplements from natural-based formulas. And the goal of natural medicine is to combine your health issues with natural methods of healing that you may not get from your regular prescribing physician. So using science combined with these natural medicines, that's how we facilitate true healing. The topic of our show today is chronic fatigue. And we're going to talk about sources and solutions, and this topic is very near and dear to my heart because I too suffered from this in my 20s when I was in college and didn't know what was wrong, could not figure it out. And there is some risks to chronic fatigue because by the time you know and you're diagnosed with chronic fatigue, a lot has been going on in your body already on a hormonal level and on a toxic level, which we now know. But at the time, my blood work looked completely normal, but I wasn't functioning well, and I was exhausted, and no matter what I did, whether I cleaned up my diet, whether I exercised, got enough sleep, took a vacation, I couldn't get better. And the medical profession was saying, well, you know, we don't know what to do. It's probably all in your head. So I was prescribed psychotropic medications, which made me feel worse. So, in a sense, what we do know now is that chronic fatigue is a syndrome. It's a very common syndrome. And profound fatigue lasting greater than 6 months is plus at least 4 of the following is the diagnosis. And there's some things to look for: subjective memory impairment, brain fog, concentration problems that are above and beyond the normal headache, the tender lymph nodes that don't go away when you know you're not sick, but a feeling of flu is often there, malaise, muscle pain, weakness, joint pain can be all part of this. The headaches and the noise or environmental sensitivity seem to be heightened. Unrefreshed sleep and sleep disruption, that waking up with that panicky feeling in the middle of the night where your heart feels like it's going to jump out of your body and you can't go back to sleep. Post-exertional malaise that lasts more than 24 hours. And like I mentioned before, the exercise that I thought would make me stronger and healthier, that was making me weaker and weaker. Chronic fatigue is often made worse by physical exercise. So it's a very elusive diagnosis, and it's at a cellular level. It is actually a cellular energy crisis. So I love my little picture here. It's you unplugging your brain, literally, at the cellular level. So I like to make that connection between chronic fatigue and a circuit breaker. So if it is truly an energy crisis, it's like pulling the plug, and research shows now that it's at the mitochondrial and the hypothalamus dysfunction level. They're the common denominators, and we'll talk about what those are later in case you don't know what they are. And similar to that circuit breaker, if the energy demands on the cell are greater than that can be met by the body, the hypothalamus, which is part of the endocrine system, will completely just blow the fuse on the body, and it will begin to want to help the body survive because the body's will do everything it can to survive. So the hypothalamus controls sleep, the endocrine system, and because the body's most important mission is to survive, it will short-circuit the endocrine system, starting in the hypothalamus, which affects the pituitary, the thyroid, the adrenals, the digestion, and eliminative systems. So pretty soon we start feeling pretty bad. So here's a picture of the endocrine system, and the endocrine system here at the very top is the CEO. It's the hypothalamus that we're talking about, okay? And it gives direction to the pituitary gland and to the thyroid and the immune system, the thymus, as well as your adrenals for your energy, for your get up and go, and your digestive system, the pancreas, your elimination, with the kidneys, and your hormonal reproductive system. And so it is at the top of the ladder, and if it's not functioning due to this fatigue or this chronic fatigue syndrome, then you are not at your peak. And so it starts with a general fatigue, and pretty soon that fatigue becomes chronic, and you may not be diagnosed with anything. Your blood work, your checkups may look normal, but you can't figure out what the problem is. But like we said, the body's first line of defense is to survive, so it begins shutting down when it doesn't have what it needs. I'm going to give you another case history. This patient was a friend of mine. He's a chiropractic physician, and he has a holistic health practice. And he is a father, he's an athlete, he's a runner, biker, and he's a seminar speaker, so he's traveling all the time. He's on a plane. He had these severe symptoms that crept up into his life. Headaches, debilitating fatigue, insomnia, brain fog, and he was preparing for a marathon, a bike marathon, and he thought, oh well, I'll detox and I'll just exercise more, and I'm going to get these toxins out of my body. And he kept getting worse and worse and worse. So he took time off, took his family on a vacation. He's actually getting worse, and being around his kids and his family, the noise of just the babies, he would say to his wife, please, I can't handle the noise right now. Please take the children in another room. And he's now a father of 5. He loves children, so he was very sad in his heart about it. So he decided he was going to take all the knowledge that he had in his own repertoire, being a physician, and he called up friends and he put together a team of researchers and said, why and what can I do? And along the line of what I do and what other holistic practitioners do, he found that we have to get to the bottom of the body's complete biological picture. So we need more than just a regular blood test and a regular physical exam. When something is going wrong and you're being told you're fine, we've got to have ways to look deeper. And that is why we're going to talk today about comprehensive lab testing, which is quite different. And those scores are based on healthy people's scores too, so you can really tell when you're starting to have a problem, rather than waiting until you're actually sick enough to have it shown up on the average of sick people's scores. So that's an important thing, because what really is going on is cellular inflammation. And so we live and die on the cellular level. Because of that, we've got to look at what happens in the membrane of the cell here. So this is one of the billions of cells in your body. It has a little nucleus, but the membrane on the outside is pretty key. And the membrane on the mitochondria is also pretty key, because if these become inflamed due to toxins or they begin to shut down, then pretty soon nutrition can't get in and toxins can't get out. And that's a huge key, because inside of these little mitochondria is where ATP is made, which is, we don't want to get into too many scientific names on this show, but that is actually what cellular energy is. And that cellular energy in the cell makes something called glutathione, which helps your cell get toxins out. Well, when your cell doesn't have enough of that energy to make this ATP, then you don't make the glutathione, you don't make the SOD, you don't get the toxins out. And so what happens is you have oxidative stress in the cell, and the cell begins to shut down. Something else that happens is methylation begins to shut down. And methylation is part of that whole detoxification process. And so you have a drop in B12, and you might show a little anemic on your blood test. You might get iron in B12, and it may not help, because you're starting something called a nitric oxic or no cycle, which we don't have time. We'll do in another show to really get into what that is. But what we know from this is we have to heal the cell. And so we know what to do now. We know how to fix that. So healing at the cellular level, what this doctor and his team of hired experts discovered is that there's a disruption of 2 main pathways for chronic fatigue syndrome, and that is the depletion of the glutathione and the methylation okay, which is how we talked about how cells can detoxify themselves and produce energy so that they can reproduce and help you be healthy, and the no-ono cycle, which is part of that process. And so what we do is we fix the cell at the cellular level, and then the problem fixes itself. And so we have what we kind of call the 5 R's, and that's the process of how we get through that, okay? And they are remove the source, okay? One of the things we've realized that causes this cellular inflammation is that we live in a toxic world. We're exposed to toxic environmental things from our air, our water, just the cars, the automobiles that drive down the road. You're breathing it, you're living it. When I was a child, I ran through it. They used to spray DDT on the lawns and the bushes, and we were kids and we thought it was really cute. We'd run through the fog, afterwards. So no wonder eventually, my toxic bucket was overloaded, and chronic fatigue, just was the end result. So we remove the source. We look at our life and we remove the source. Maybe in our homes we have toxins as well. And then we from our testing, we know what we need to do to regenerate the cell membrane. And we have things we can use now, natural medicines that can actually do this and accomplish this without drugs, without medication, and without suppression. Restoring cellular energy. We talked about ATP and how every cell makes that ATP in its mitochondria. And when that slows down, you have no energy. Neither does your cell and neither does your body functions, and therefore your hormonal endocrine system as well. So we have ways of reducing the inflammation and the oxidative stress and reestablishing methylation so that your body is functioning once again on a cellular level the way it needs to heal itself. And that is the goal, ladies and gentlemen, of natural medicines and holistic healing, okay? So cellular inflammation is the cause for 80 to 90% of all the medical conditions. But we often don't recognize it until it becomes an actual issue. But we live and die at the cellular level. So the simple solution is to get rid of the cause, like we said, that's remove the source, and we still have to find the cause. So how do we find it? That's the question. So one of the things we do is a comprehensive lab analysis with 52 different kinds of tests that gives you an overall picture of your health. This is a test where it's a before and after. So you can see that the first test that we did on this particular patient, there was little red markers and yellow markers and white markers and blue. The white ones are normal, based on healthy people, not based on the averages of sick people that go into the doctor because they don't feel good. And then we have these yellow ones, and these are warning signs. We want to look at these warning signs, and we want to say, okay, what is it that we need to do? What do we need to focus on? And then, red is something that's calling out for attention, and blue, that's code blue. So we have an order of how we treat. So this kind of testing gives us a way to look at what is happening in your body right now at a cellular level and a blood level, and we get a biological picture uniquely of you, and we say, okay, now we know what to do. And this patient's second testing for follow-ups, you can see lots of improvement, lots of white, there's no more blue, and there's hardly any red, and that's the goal. That's what we're trying to do. But we're using blood, hair, and urine. We're not only using blood analysis. So I was talking about lab work based on healthy people, and most lab ranges that you look at when your blood work comes back are based on sick people, as I mentioned, who come into the doctor and they get their blood work done because they don't feel good. And because they don't feel good, and those averages are put all together, that's how they code the markers. Well, your functional lows and your functional highs on that kind of testing may look normal, but we really want to know what our test results are on healthy people. So that's our goal. because sometimes we don't know if there's something wrong with you unless those blood tests get to abnormal low or abnormal high values. And so this is called preventative lab testing, to test with healthy ranges. So the other thing we do is hair analysis. And now we were talking about toxins and their contribution to chronic fatigue. Huge contribution, and one of the easiest ways to do it is with hair analysis. Oops, going backwards. I jumped ahead of myself. Okay, here's a picture of a hair follicle. All follicles are attached to blood, and so the body is trying to eliminate all the time through the blood, through the other eliminatory organs. But one of the ways that we can test for the metals is when it releases those toxins back into the hair. So doing hair analysis in addition to blood work gives us a good idea if you have too much of a toxin, of a toxic metal or mineral, or if you have not enough of the ones that you really want. And that's pretty important because too many toxins also disrupts the hormones, which can start that fatigue cycle. And so the hair follicle is very good for showing trace amount of chemicals, good and bad. So quick summary, chronic fatigue is prolonged fatigue for a long period of time, which can cause poor concentration, irritable moods, restless sleep, depression, even fibromyalgia. A lot of people with chronic fatigue have fibromyalgia. And chronic fatigue syndrome is also connected with another disease called Lyme disease. They often go together. And so, we're trying to get to the root cause. Even irritable bowel syndrome is part in connection to chronic fatigue. And so we're going to look at the whole body, and we're going to look at how to restore the whole body's function by figuring out who you are biologically and what we can actually do by this comprehensive type of testing. 3 ways to dysfunction. First, we have toxins, infections, and often antibiotics that go with them. So there's some dysbiosis already that starts in the gut. Poor diet, dietary habits, and hormonal surges for one reason or another. Extreme stress produces a lot of, epinephrine and adrenal rushes. But often this can lead to autoimmune, and that's when your own system starts attacking itself, and it causes inflammation. And then, as we started off in the beginning of the show, inflammation is one of the root causes of, and probably 80 to 90% of all disease. So there we go. We start on the cycle of cellular inflammation, and then we have disruption at the hypothalamus level, which, remember in the beginning, the circuit breaker that came out of the brain? We start coming unplugged on an endocrine level. So we have decreased hormone function and thyroid function as well. So causes of inflammation are toxins, bad fats. We don't want hydrogenated vegetable oils. We don't want trans fats in our diet. And the endless amounts of chemicals that we feed our kids in the sugars and the cereals, and that we eat ourselves too. We go to the movies and we cheat. But too much of this stuff will begin to build up in the body, especially if the cell is unable to release these toxins and the cellular energy begins to deplete, like we were talking about earlier. So the problem is, here's a cell membrane. You remember we had a picture of a cell there. Nutrients can't get in and toxins can't get out. So that triggers the genes. The susceptibility interferes with cell communication and cellular function. And so the receptors on the membrane are blunted and they can't hear the hormones speaking. Therefore, we have another hormone cascade. So you can't even hear the voice of insulin crying out for your for life. And so you crave sugars, and and that depletes you more. So 3 solutions that are not Band-Aids are cellular healing in the diet, increasing the good fats, decreasing the sugars, and reducing the inflammation due to toxins. We have protocols based on your blood testing and your blood work, that are natural medicines that help the healing process at the cellular membrane and the cellular function, and which creates true cellular detox, okay? We want to get those cells healthy again. We want you healthy again. So another little test that we have that's a really good test is called a meta-oxy test. And what this does is it's a simple little urine test, because part of our testing too that we do in the office is a urine test. We get a complete urinalysis. And then we can add this little test to it if we think that you're dealing with toxins. What it does is it tests malonaldehyde, which is a byproduct of cellular lipid peroxidation and free radical damage. Big words, I know, but very important. It's a very easy test to read. It takes only a couple minutes, and it tells you if we need to give you some more methylation and perhaps a little more antioxidants in your supplements, in your diet, so on and so forth. And it is 50 times more accurate than our blood testing to determine if you're aging prematurely. So we like to put it with those 52 blood tests. We live in a world that's different than our grandparents. We're exposed toxically all the time. So we like to use, natural medicines, herbs, nutrition, with science at the cellular level, at the DNA level, because your DNA is epigenetically who you are as a person, and you were born with a certain set of markers that will turn off and on as you are healthy or unhealthy, and your gene markers can be turned off for disease and on for health by how you live your life, and we can show you how to do that. So we heal by starting to fix the cell. And in our office, we use several different natural products. These are right here, are from Systemic Formula. These are for hormonal functions and building that function. This is a cardiolipin supplement. It's all natural, and it helps you put the healthy fats in your diet that you may not be getting to help build that cellular membrane. And a couple months of these will heal that membrane and get it talking again and hearing those hormone receptors. This is for the detoxification, the oh-no cycle that we talked about of cellular toxic syndrome. And then another product that helps the telomeres repair to protect them, so we can keep your body from aging. Something about telomeres is that you are born, you're conceived, you have 15,000 of them. When you're born, you have 10,000, and when you die, you have 5,000. So it doesn't matter if you're 30, 12, or 90. You die at 5,000 bases. These are telomere bases I'm talking about. So we want to protect those. And toxins in the cell and cellular inflammation tears those down, so that every time the DNA replicates, you're losing more and more of those telomere bases, and you're shortening your life. So we have ways now where we can bring that back, and we have ways to test you for that. We can tell. So back to the labs. The advantage of comprehensive lab testing from results based on averages of thousands of healthy people is that you are able to see right from early on stages what might be going on at a cellular level in your body that shows us markers as to how to help you stay healthy, stay young, and feel good and have energy, and prevent some of these diseases like the hormonal cascade, the autoimmune diseases, low thyroid, adrenal fatigue, which we'll be talking about in our next show. That's a global epidemic as well. And this gives you the ability to set your health goals so that you know how to really enhance your body's own innate smart ability to heal itself. You may be on medications. We won't take you off your medications, but you may not need them after a while, or you may be able to reduce them. That all depends on where you're at and how far we can go with this. But I myself am completely cured from chronic fatigue syndrome, and as is my colleague friend, Doctor. So we can do this. We can do this because we know how to find the source and give you the right nutrition for results. So we can find those early warning signs of chronic fatigue through your nutritional lab overview. And your comprehensive lab work will tell us if your hormone and receptor sites are no longer talking to each other, or whether or not you have an autoimmune problem with your hormones, or whether your lab work can tell us if you have a toxicity problem, like we were talking about. And that's very important because it's one of those things that gets ignored a lot. And it's becoming a larger issue now that we eat more genetically modified foods. Our foods are sprayed and with Roundup Ready, and we use it in our yards, and our kids run through it on their bare feet in the grass, and we walk through it in the golf course, and so we're constantly breathing toxins, we're eating toxins, and we're finding them in places that we didn't find them before. And this includes molds, mildews, and environmental toxins that we can't get away from anyway. So we can really figure this out and offer you solutions by this kind of testing. And so the way that we can do this naturally is to really get to the bottom of the healing and heal at the cellular level. So your individual comprehensive lab testing can tell us where to start and give your body what it needs to heal itself. And that's the goal of natural medicine. And that's why we're so excited about it, because we're having so many results that just warm our own hearts. It makes me so happy to go into work and get the results of somebody who's really healing and feeling so much better and having a life back again. And that's important. That's why I do this work. This is my office at 712 D Street Medical Building, Suite G in San Rafael. You can write to me, email at janara@janara.net, or phone number 415-847-5502. Thank you for joining us today, and may you be in good health. I'd like to give you thanks today to all the people at CM Squared and the Community Media Center of Marin for making use of these facilities to bring you these shows. Thank you very much.